Hi, and welcome back to Gentle Dreams Story Time. Today's first story is The Dreaming Compass, a 30-minute bedtime adventure. Chapter 1, The Gentle Discovery. Dr. Elena Cartwright adjusted her well-worn leather satchel as she stepped into the dusty archive room of the Cairo Museum. The late afternoon sun filtered through tall windows, casting golden rectangles across ancient scrolls and forgotten artifacts. Elena had spent years traveling the world as an archaeologist, but unlike the adventures in old movies, her journeys were filled with quiet wonder and peaceful discoveries. Today felt different, though. As she carefully examined a collection of items donated by a recently deceased collector, her fingers brushed against something unusual, a compass unlike any she'd ever seen. Its brass surface was warm to the touch, etched with symbols that seemed to shimmer and change in the gentle light. The needle didn't point north. Instead, it spun slowly, as if searching for something far more mysterious than magnetic direction. "How curious," Elena whispered to herself, her voice barely disturbing the tranquil silence of the archive room. She lifted the compass closer, noticing tiny engravings around its edge. Symbols that looked like they belonged to different cultures: Egyptian hieroglyphs, Chinese characters, Norse runes, and scripts she couldn't immediately identify. Dr. Hassan, the museum's elderly curator, shuffled over with a warm smile. His white beard caught the afternoon light as he peered at Elena's discovery. "Ah, you found something special, haven't you?" he said in his gentle, accented English. "That compass belonged to a scholar named Professor Aldrich. He believed it was created by ancient cartographers who wanted to map not just the world, but the connections between all peoples." Elena felt a peaceful excitement wash over her. "Do you know what these symbols mean?" "Each symbol represents a place where Professor Aldrich believed the compass would lead its holder," Dr. Hassan explained, settling into a nearby chair with the ease of someone who had spent countless hours among ancient treasures. "He called it the Dreaming Compass, said it would guide worthy travelers to discover the threads that connect all humanity." As Elena held the compass, she felt an overwhelming sense of calm purpose. The needle had stopped spinning and now pointed steadily toward the window, toward the west, where the sun was beginning its gentle descent toward the horizon. Chapter 2, The Village of Quiet Wisdom. 3 days later, Elena found herself in a small village nestled in the Atlas Mountains of Morocco. The compass had guided her here through winding roads lined with olive trees and lavender fields. The journey had been peaceful, filled with stunning vistas and the gentle rhythm of her rented car climbing through mountain passes. The village was a collection of earth-colored buildings that seemed to grow naturally from the mountainside. Children played quietly in narrow alleyways while their grandparents sat in doorways, weaving carpets with patient, practiced hands. The air smelled of mint tea and baking bread. Elena approached an elderly woman named Aisha, who was working at a loom under the shade of a fig tree. Her fingers moved with hypnotic precision, creating intricate patterns in deep blues and warm golds. "Welcome, traveler," Aisha said without looking up from her work. We don't get many visitors who carry the old compass." Elena blinked in surprise. "You know about this compass?" Aisha smiled, her weathered hands never pausing in their work. "My grandmother told me stories of such a compass. She said it would bring those who seek understanding, not gold." She gestured for Elena to sit on a nearby cushion. "Would you like some tea while you rest?" As Elena sipped the sweet mint tea, Aisha shared the village's history. Long ago, this village was a stopping point for travelers from many lands. Scholars, merchants, pilgrims, all would rest here and share their knowledge. We learned that wisdom grows when different minds meet in peace. The compass in Elena's lap grew warm, and she noticed one of the symbols, what looked like interwoven circles, beginning to glow faintly. "Each symbol on your compass represents a lesson," Aisha explained, having noticed Elena's wonderment. "The circles you see glowing now represent connection. Here, you learn that all people, no matter how different they seem, share common hopes and dreams." Elena spent 2 peaceful days in the village, learning traditional weaving techniques and listening to stories passed down through generations. The villagers shared their knowledge freely, teaching her about local plants that could heal, stars that could guide, and songs that could comfort. On her final evening, as the sun set behind the mountains in brilliant oranges and purples, the entire village gathered for a celebration. There was no loud music or boisterous dancing. Instead, they shared quiet songs and gentle poetry under a canopy of stars so bright they seemed close enough to touch. Chapter 3. The Master of Ancient Gardens. The compass next led Elena to Kyoto, Japan, where cherry blossoms were just beginning to bloom. The petals fell like soft snow, creating a pink carpet along the stone paths of ancient temples. Elena found herself drawn to a particular garden, tucked away behind high walls, where the compass needle pointed with steady certainty. She discovered the entrance through a simple wooden gate that opened onto a scene of breathtaking tranquility. Perfectly manicured moss gardens rolled gently between carefully placed stones. A small stream wound through the space, its soft babbling the only sound besides the gentle rustle of bamboo leaves. An elderly man was kneeling beside the stream, tending to a small stone bridge with infinite patience. His movements were slow and deliberate, each gesture seeming to hold deep meaning. He wore simple gray robes that blended with the colors of the garden. "Master Tanaka!" Elena ventured softly, not wanting to disturb the peaceful atmosphere. The man looked up with kind eyes that crinkled at the corners. "You must be the one the compass has brought," he said in perfect English, his voice as gentle as the stream beside him. "I have been expecting you." Elena spent hours in that garden learning about the Japanese concept of ma, the beauty found in empty spaces and quiet moments. Master Tanaka showed her how the garden was designed not just to be beautiful, but to create peace in the hearts of those who visit it. Each stone is placed with intention, he explained as they walked slowly along the winding path. Each plant is chosen not just for its beauty, but for the harmony it creates with all the others. This is the lesson of balance, how individual elements can come together to create something greater than their sum. As they spoke, another symbol on Elena's compass began to glow, this one resembling a scale in perfect equilibrium. Master Tanaka taught Elena the art of tea ceremony, where every movement was performed with mindful attention. As they knelt on soft tatami mats, sharing tea from delicate ceramic cups, Elena felt a profound sense of connection to generations of people who had found peace in these simple, deliberate actions. The compass teaches us that treasure is not always gold or jewels, Master Tanaka said as they watched koi fish swim lazily in a pond. Sometimes the greatest treasure is understanding of ourselves, of others, and of our place in the great garden of existence. That night, Elena slept in a traditional ryokan, lulled to sleep by the gentle sound of bamboo wind chimes and the distant temple bells that marked the peaceful passage of time. Chapter 4. The Storyteller of Northern Lights. From the serene gardens of Japan, the compass directed Elena north to Norway, to a small village above the Arctic Circle, where the northern lights danced across winter skies. She arrived in late November, when the days were short and the nights were filled with ethereal green curtains of light. The village was a collection of cozy wooden houses with smoke curling gently from their chimneys. Snow covered everything in a soft blanket of white, muffling all sounds except the distant howl of Arctic wind and the crunch of footsteps on frozen paths. Elena found herself drawn to a small library housed in what had once been a lighthouse. Inside, she discovered an elderly woman named Astrid, surrounded by books in dozens of languages. The woman's silver hair gleamed in the lamplight as she carefully translated ancient Norse texts. "The compass has brought another seeker," Astrid said with a warm smile, looking up from her work. "I wondered when you would arrive. The lights have been particularly active lately, always a sign that important stories are about to be shared." Astrid was a keeper of oral traditions, someone who collected and preserved the stories that connected cultures across the Arctic. She showed Elena maps covered with intricate notations marking migration routes, trading paths, and the spread of stories across vast distances. Long before there were roads or ships or airplanes, Astrid explained as they sat by a crackling fireplace, there were stories. People would travel incredible distances just to share tales, to learn new ones, and to discover how their own stories connected with those of distant peoples. Outside, the aurora borealis began its nightly dance. Through the lighthouse's large windows, Elena watched ribbons of green and blue light undulate across the starry sky like slow cosmic waves. "The old ones believed the lights were the spirits of storytellers," Astrid said softly, "forever sharing their tales across the sky. Each color, each movement was a different story being told." The compass grew warm in Elena's hands, and a new symbol began to glow. This one resembling flowing lines that seemed to dance and move like the lights outside. Astrid shared stories that night, tales of brave explorers, wise shamans, and communities that survived harsh winters through cooperation and shared wisdom. Each story was told in a gentle, hypnotic cadence that made Elena feel drowsy and peaceful. "Stories," Astrid whispered as the fire died down to glowing embers, "are how we remember that we are never truly alone. Every story connects us to someone else, somewhere else, someone else." Chapter 5. The Keeper of Desert Songs. The compass next pointed Elena toward the vast emptiness of the Australian outback, to a place where red earth stretched endlessly under an enormous sky. She traveled by small plane and then by four-wheel drive, finally arriving at a remote station where an Aboriginal elder named William had been waiting for her. William was a man who seemed to carry the wisdom of the desert in his weathered features. His eyes held depths like ancient waterholes, and when he spoke, his voice carried the rhythm of wind across vast spaces. "Compass been singing to me in my dreams," he said with a gentle smile, gesturing for Elena to sit beside him under the shade of a solitary eucalyptus tree. "Been waiting for you to come learn about the song lines." As the day cooled into evening, William began to teach Elena about the Aboriginal concept of songlines, invisible pathways across the land that were mapped by traditional songs. Each song told the story of ancestral spirits who traveled across the continent, creating the landscape as they went. Every rock, every waterhole, every tree got its place in the song, William explained, his voice taking on a chanting quality. "The whole continent is like one big story, and everyone who lives here is part of that story." He taught Elena a simple song about finding water in the desert, showing her how the melody contained navigation instructions, survival knowledge, and spiritual wisdom, all woven together. As she hummed along, another symbol on her compass began to glow, this one resembling a winding path. That night, as they sat around a small campfire under a sky more filled with stars than Elena had ever seen, William shared more of his culture's wisdom. He spoke of how his people believed that all things were connected by invisible threads, and that by learning to follow these connections, one could find their way anywhere, both physically and spiritually. "Your compass," he said, nodding toward the artifact that rested peacefully in Elena's lap. "It's like a song line made into something you can hold. It follows the threads that connect all people, all places, all stories." The fire crackled softly, and somewhere in the distance, a dingo called to its pack. Elena felt more peaceful than she had in years, surrounded by the vast emptiness that somehow felt completely full. Chapter 6. The Weaver of Mountain Wisdom. From the Australian desert, the compass led Elena high into the Andes Mountains of Peru, to a village where clouds drifted between ancient terraced fields and llamas grazed peacefully on steep slopes. The air was thin and clean, carrying the scent of mountain herbs and the distant sound of pan pipes. Elena found herself in the workshop of Maria, a master weaver who created textiles that seemed to contain the entire history of her people. Her fingers worked with practiced ease, pulling threads of alpaca wool in brilliant colors, deep reds like sunset, blues like mountain lakes, and golds like morning light on snow-capped peaks. The compass brings those who wish to learn the true meaning of wealth, Maria said without looking up from her loom. Here, we measure richness not in gold, but in the strength of our connections to each other and to Pachamama, Mother Earth. Maria's workshop was filled with other women, each working quietly at their own projects. Mothers taught daughters, grandmothers shared techniques with granddaughters, and friends collaborated on large ceremonial textiles that would take months to complete. Each thread in these weavings tells part of our story, Maria explained, showing Elena how certain patterns represented mountain spirits. Others depicted important historical events, and still others contained practical information about weather patterns and planting seasons. Elena learned to spin alpaca wool on a traditional spindle, the gentle, repetitive motion becoming almost meditative. As she worked, another symbol on her compass began to glow, this one looking like threads woven together in an intricate pattern. During her stay, Elena participated in a traditional ceremony to honor the harvest season. The entire village gathered in a circle, sharing food, music, and gratitude. There was no rush, no urgency, just the peaceful rhythm of a community that had learned to live in harmony with the natural world around them. The mountains teach us patience, Maria said as they watched the sunset paint the peaks in shades of pink and gold. They show us that the most beautiful things take time to create, and that strength comes from deep roots and steady growth. Chapter 7: The Scholar of Island Mysteries. The compass's final direction led Elena across the Pacific Ocean to a small island in Polynesia, where palm trees swayed gently in ocean breezes, and the sound of waves on coral beaches provided a constant, soothing soundtrack. She was met at the small harbor by Caimana, a navigator who still practiced the ancient art of wayfinding, navigating vast ocean distances using only the stars, wind patterns, and wave movements. His weathered sailing canoe rested peacefully in the lagoon, its traditional design unchanged for centuries. The compass has completed its circle, Caimana said with a knowing smile. You have gathered threads from around the world, and now it is time to weave them together. Caimana taught Elena how his ancestors had navigated across thousands of miles of open ocean, using knowledge passed down through generations. They would read the stars like maps, feel the subtle changes in wave patterns that indicated distant islands, and watch for birds that would guide them to land. The ocean connects all lands, he explained, as they sat on the beach, watching the gentle waves roll in under a sky filled with more stars than seemed possible. What looks like emptiness is actually full of pathways. You just have to know how to read them. On her final night, as Elena held the compass under the starlight, all of its symbols glowed gently. She realized that her journey had not been about finding a traditional treasure, but about discovering the invisible connections that link all people and places. Epilogue: The Dreaming Truth. As Elena prepared to return home, she understood that the compass had shown her something profound. Each person she had met, each culture she had experienced, had contributed a thread to a tapestry of human wisdom that spanned the globe. The treasure she had discovered was not gold or jewels, but knowledge, the understanding that despite all our differences in language, custom, and geography, humans everywhere share the same fundamental desires for connection, peace, understanding, and belonging. Back in her study months later, Elena placed the compass on her desk where the evening light could touch it. The symbols no longer glowed, but she could feel their warmth. She began to write, documenting not just her journey, but the deeper truth it had revealed, that the greatest adventures are not about conquering or claiming, but about connecting and understanding. Sometimes, late at night when the world was quiet, Elena would hold the compass and remember the gentle lessons it had taught her. She would think of Aisha's patient weaving, Master Tanaka's peaceful garden, Astrid's dancing stories, William's desert songs, Maria's patient threads, and Kaimana's ocean pathways. And in those quiet moments, surrounded by the peaceful darkness of night, Elena would drift off to sleep, dreaming of all the invisible threads that connected her to people around the world, threads of story and song, of wisdom and wonder, of the gentle adventure that comes from truly seeing and understanding our shared humanity. The compass rested peacefully on her desk, its work complete, waiting perhaps for the next gentle soul who would need to learn that the greatest treasures are found not in distant vaults, but in the quiet connections that make us all part of one beautiful, interconnected human story. Sweet dreams, dear traveler. May your own adventures be filled with gentle wonder and peaceful discovery.